Welcome to the masterclass, The Changemaker's Compass, 4 tools to help you create social impact. When you're trying to create change, there can be times when you feel like you're just getting pulled off course. I know what that's like. I know I've been there myself. And I have found some tools and practices that can help you stay on course throughout the process of creating change. And in this class, I'm going to share some of those strategies with you, and I'll tell you about an opportunity to take this work deeper. So let's start by defining what the word changemaker means. I would invite you to pause this recording for a few minutes just to write down what the word changemaker means to you. Here's how I define changemakers. Some people are really satisfied with the status quo, kind of with the way that things are. They just kind of accept how the systems and structures in the world function. A person begins to become a change maker when they're no longer satisfied with the status quo. And when they get to the point where it's not like not only are they not satisfied with it, they also won't accept it. And they are determined to take action to create some change around that. I'm Tamara Hurl, and I've been a change maker all my life. And today, my life is really wonderful. I have so much freedom. I can work with whoever I want to, which at this point in my life is change makers. And my schedule is great. I can work the hours that I want. And when I'm not working, I can go out in nature. We own 9 acres, and I can go out there and sit beside the creek and just really soak up the beauty of nature and let go of stress. And I feel so blessed to be living this life. But it wasn't always this way. I spent 8 years in a really oppressive marriage. My ex-husband really tried to control who I was and what I did. He wouldn't let me go to town. We lived in the country, and he said, "You're only going to town once a week." And so I hated that, because at that point in my life, I didn't love nature like I do now. And I wanted to be able to go and hang out with my friends and do things, but that wasn't allowed. And also, he tried to define who I was. He said, your role is here in the home, being a wife and a mother. And don't get me wrong, I loved my children, but I wanted to be able to have a voice. I felt like I was meant for more. There were so many times when I felt like leaving him. I can't tell you the number of times that I packed up the car with all the essentials that I thought I would need and got ready to leave. He was always out partying all the time, so he never was around when I was packing up the car. But I just kept chickening out. I just couldn't find the courage to um, to leave him. Although finally I did. After 8 years, I was sick of it. There was one point in time where I said I was going to go to a drive-in movie without him because he didn't want to go, and he tried to choke me, and I couldn't believe it. I can't believe I did this. I got kind of feisty. I said to him, like, "What are you going to do? Choke me?" And so then he stopped. But that just helped me realize what he was capable of. And I just decided, after a certain amount of time, I finally thought, I've got to leave. I cannot do this anymore. I need to break away and create change. And by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Tamara Hurl, and I own a company called Wild Divine Coaching and Retreats. And you know, I when I decided to leave him, I knew I worked I found a part-time job which I loved, but eventually I realized that I really needed to go to school and get some training. So because I didn't want to be just working for minimum wage all my life. So I decided to get some training to become an art teacher. And it was there while I was an art teacher that I got a real chance to create some change. Um, Part of it was just, of course, in helping kids embrace their creativity, but a really important um, opportunity came when an F5 tornado ripped through the town where I was teaching, and several people were killed, and lots of people's homes were destroyed. And I noticed that the children were really struggling, and I knew that at this point I was in training to get my degree as an art therapist, but I hadn't graduated yet. And besides, I was hired to work as an art educator. But I knew that if these kids could just immerse themselves in art, they would have a chance to really process and work through what had happened to them and what they'd seen happen to their friends. So I approached the principal and I said, look, I know I need to keep teaching the curriculum, but would you be okay if I just carved out some time at the end of each class to let the students make some art and just draw whatever they want to draw or sculpt whatever they want to sculpt? And she was okay with that. So I did that. And it was great because I was able to witness the progression in the students' work as they processed the trauma that they had been through. Their designs initially after the event were scribbly and dark, and they pushed really hard on the drawing utensil, the crayon or the pencil. And as they began to work through that, their art became less littered with the debris that had been part of the debris of the storm, and their images just became more calm. I actually ended up publishing, writing an article about it and getting it published in the National Journal for Art Therapy, the American Art Therapy Association Journal. So that was a real highlight. And I loved that work for a while. But I always knew, even when I was training to be an art teacher, I knew that I wanted to take the work deeper, especially because, like, in that school, as an art educator, I wasn't hired to address the kids' emotional needs. I was only there to help them teach art. So I went ahead and got my degree as an art therapist. And after I got that degree, for a while I was doing contract work. And part of that work involved me teaching art to preschool kids. And that was a blast. Um, I thought, oh, I'm going to teach these kids how to save the world. But thank God I had a mentor who said, you know what, before you teach, you're asking people to save the earth, you need to help them connect with it. So I started thinking about ways that I could do that, because I also, in my work as an art therapist, I still felt that call to be a change maker. And one of the things that I felt needed to change was the way that we are treating the earth. And so I thought, well, how can I help people feel a connection to the earth? And so what I did was I came up with this idea of using nature items to and using a circular form, because in art therapy we call that a mandala, and it's a great tool for healing and reflecting. And I thought, I'm going to use these circles, or I called them earth circles, and I worked with students that were in a summer school, and I also was working with some people, adults in I think it was a rehab facility, a medical facility to help people rehabilitate. And I took these earth circles to both of these places, and I asked people to think about what is, what does it feel like when you lose something? Have you lost a pet? Have you lost a loved one? Have you lost an opportunity? And I said, you know what? That's how the earth feels maybe when a species goes extinct. And they said, yeah, you're right. And so they made these really inspiring and striking earth circles. And we had two different exhibits of the earth circles. One was at an art gallery, and one was at Colorado State University in Pueblo. And even the kind of famous, at least in Colorado, photographer John Fielder took part in the and created an earth circle that was part of a display at the college. So I felt like I was really making a difference, and as a change maker, by helping the people just think more about the earth and how we're treating it, and how we can stop devastating the earth and causing species to go extinct. So that I really enjoyed that Changemaker project. And eventually I went back to working in the corporate world. And soon, of course, because when you're a change maker, that passion for change just won't stop. It just keeps niggling at you whenever there's an opportunity, when needs aren't being met. That passion for change is gonna, I don't know if you've noticed it, but it sure happens for me. I just start feeling this pull. It's kind of like a compass in a way, that pulling me, that there's something wrong here, just like in my marriage, something wrong here. It's not right. People's needs aren't being met. And what I noticed when I went back into the corporate world was that my colleagues, the organization was doing a pretty good job at taking care of the clients. But what I noticed was that my colleagues were struggling. The productivity expectations were so high, and they were all doing the best they could, but they had all this paperwork that they needed to do. And I felt really bad for them, and I wanted to support them. So I approached both my supervisor, who gave me the go ahead, and then the CEO, which was really scary. But I said, I want to do this project. I can see that my colleagues are struggling, and it's not going to be just a session or a program where they're just going to complain about what's wrong. I'm going to invite them to problem solve too. And so that's what we did. I invited them to think about, it was a 12-week program, and they even gave up their noon hour time, so their lunchtime. So they were giving even more of their time because they really needed something. They needed some support, and they felt like they could get it through this program. We used expressive arts. We used spirituality. I invited them to really think about what gives your life meaning and purpose? That was the first thing, because that's how I define spirituality, or it's like the broadest definition of spirituality. What gives your life meaning and purpose? And how can you bring that into the workplace? So we brainstormed ways to do that using different expressive arts practices and techniques. And the results were incredible. The images were just they were so inspiring to me and just so profound. And so I was really excited about that. And I decided to submit well, let me go back and just say, some of the results were that the people started being able to comply with the productivity expectations. They stopped putting off paperwork. So that was good for the organization. They felt more connected with their peers. They didn't feel so isolated. There was one lady who was a guitar player and she was a therapist, started bringing her guitar into work. And it was just so exciting to see what they were doing. And I was so excited about the project that I submitted it along with some other things that the organization was doing. We submitted all the things that we were doing at this organization to a broader organization that was giving out awards to organizations that were incorporating spirituality into the workplace. And the organization actually won. And that was so gratifying. It really made me feel like, okay, I'm making a difference as a change maker. And that's really important. As change makers, we want things to be better in the world. That's why we do what we do. And today I'm still doing my change making work. And at this point in time, I'm really excited because in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be able to present as part of a youth activist training. And my portion of the training is going to be about helping change makers. These young change makers are going to learn about how to create change without creating divisiveness and polarization. Because I looked around me in the world and I saw change makers doing their work, but I noticed, a lot of them, they're doing protests, getting people. I saw videos of people like getting up in each other's faces and about getting into fistfights. And we don't need more of that. We need to be able to create change in a way that doesn't cause more polarization. And by using a process called internal family systems or parts work, that is what can happen. We can create change in a way that really supports the common needs and supports the dignity. It doesn't excuse disrespecting people's rights. That is not okay. That is never okay. But there's a way that you can find common ground when you tap into what's called self. And that I'll be sharing more about that with you in just a little bit. So these 4 tools that I'm going to be sharing today are going to help you be more innovative and effective and energized and enlightened as a change maker. We need all the tools that we can get. Hold on, let me just get caught up with my notes here. All right, so the first tool that I'm going to share with you is nature immersion. Just like I did with my clients when we created those earth circles for the exhibit. When you use nature items to create art, and when you spend time in nature, it can really help you create change from a place of power, but not aggressive power. It's just calm, assertive power. We have choices as change makers. Sometimes when we do our change maker work, for instance, let me go back to that when I was talking about when when people are getting in fistfights and bumping heads and shouting at each other, it's because the other person is feeling threatened. So I might say, yes, people need to stop littering. And the other one might say, well, I have the right to do what I want. So we can bump heads over that. And sometimes that can be really overwhelming and intimidating. And then we can go into what's called flight mode. It's like, it's scary. I don't want to be having people yelling in my face. So I'm not going to do anything about this problem. Or we can go the other route. We can be in fight mode. And that's where we can say, I don't care. You are wrong. It is wrong to litter. But that just makes the other person get defensive. And then they're going to feel like they need to stand up for their rights. So it's much more effective if we can go to the place of compassionate action. And that's where we address the issues in a way that respects the rights and the dignity of everyone who's involved. And being in nature is a great way to help us get out of fight or flight mode, because it can, like I said, it can feel really scary if we think about, oh, I don't want to be marching in protest. And so if you want to make change, but you're finding that you're feeling scared to share your voice, I invite you to try this process from nature therapy. Actually, I'm actually a certified forest therapy guide, and this is something that I learned. It's called the pleasure of presence, and I'm going to share it with you now. So I'll tell you how to do it, and then you can just do it along with me while I guide you through the process. So if you don't have a nature item, an object from nature, I invite you to pause right now, pause the video, and get something from nature: a rock, a seashell, a leaf, or you could even look at a nature item, but it's better if you can hold it in your hand. So pause the video right now if you don't have a nature item. Okay, now that you have your nature item, I want you to hold it in your hand, and I invite you to just begin by taking some deep breaths. I invite you to gently close your eyes, or if that doesn't feel safe, then just find something that you can stare at that's off in the distance somewhere. And feel the weight of the nature item in your hand. How heavy does it feel? Just kind of notice with your sense of knowing the weight, your sense of touch. And notice whether the object or item feels cold or warm, soft or hard. Just really notice with your sense of touch. And if there's anything that's enjoyable, I just invite you to drink that in. Just welcome that pleasure. We don't allow ourselves to experience pleasure often enough, in my opinion. Now notice with your sense of smell. So bring the object closer to your face. Breathe through your nose. Does the object have a smell? And if it does, how would you describe that smell? And now, I invite you to notice with your sense of taste. You don't have to lick the nature item, but just open your mouth and breathe in through your mouth and see if you can sort of taste this object that you're holding. Turn your head slightly away from the nature item and breathe in through your mouth there and see if the air smells differently when you're not smelling and tasting the object. And then turn your head back towards the item, the nature item. Breathe in again. See if you notice a difference in the way with your sense of smell. And now notice with your sense of hearing, just bring this nature item up to your ear and maybe scratch it, stroke it softly, stroke it with your fingernails, maybe tap on it. What do you notice with your sense of hearing about this nature item? And now gently open your eyes and look at the nature item as if you're seeing it for the very first time. Notice the color, the textures, anything else that you notice with your sense of sight. And if there's anything that's enjoyable, just welcome what you're seeing. Now I invite you to check in with your entire being and just see if you notice anything different about your level of relaxation. Doing this practice, the pleasure of presence, can really help you get out of that fight or flight mode and get into a peaceful state where you're more restful and calm, and you can access your creativity and innovation and other helpful aspects of being a change maker. So thank you for trying that practice with me. I am getting ready to teach a deep dive workshop that will take the Changemaker's compass tools a little bit deeper. And in that, we'll be doing other nature immersion practices that people just love when I share with them. So let me share the second tool with you, and that tool is spiritual connection. This is a tool that can really help you stay on course as a change maker. Many spiritual teachers believe that humans have untapped potential that is dormant in their DNA. I was really excited when I learned that, and I thought, gosh, I wonder if there's precedent for that in nature. I mean, can we prove that that's really true? So I started doing some research, and what I found was that yes, there is precedent, because a caterpillar in its DNA has the potential for wings, but that portion of its DNA, that aspect, just hasn't been turned on yet. And I thought that is so cool. So I wondered if, could that be true for humans as well? So I started doing some research, and I found that the Institute of Heart Math discovered by doing research that they had a research subject hold 3 petri dishes that had DNA in them, and they had the research subject use one of their practices that I'm going to share with you in just a minute. They had the research subject direct their energy towards the DNA while doing this practice, and what they noticed was that the DNA coils in the petri dishes, 2 out of the 3, uncoiled slightly. And you may be thinking, well, why is that a big deal? It's because the researchers also found that when our DNA is slightly relaxed, we can access more easily the hidden potential that's in our DNA. So I would love to share the heart math technique that was used in that research process with you, or that research project with you. It's called quick coherence technique, and you don't need anything else to do this, so there's no need to pause the video. But I invite you to just kind of get as comfortable as you can in your chair. Take a few deep breaths. And as you breathe, I invite you to focus on your heart. Now bring to mind, as you continue to breathe, a moment in time where, when you were in that moment, you felt a deep sense of gratitude. Just bring that moment to your awareness and relive it using all of your senses. So what were you seeing in that moment of time? What were you hearing? Maybe what you're noticing, sense of touch, like was it warm? Was it cool? Was the air blowing? Was the wind blowing? So all of your senses, hearing, maybe even taste, just relive that moment using all of your senses. Anchor in your experience of this moment in time and the gratitude that you connect with it, so that you can reconnect to this moment whenever you need to. Because remember, when you get yourself out of fight or flight mode, like you can with quick coherence technique, it can help you access your highest skills as a change maker so that you can create the kind of change that's going to really make a difference in the world. I hope you enjoyed learning about quick coherence technique. In my deep dive workshop, I teach other spiritual practices that help people activate their dormant DNA and also how to attract the resources that you need to do your work as a change maker and manifest that vision for change that you have. The third tool that I'd like to share with you is art immersion. So just as I had those clients of mine, or the students in the classroom, I knew that if they could just immerse themselves in art, it would help them grow. And as a change maker, it's important for you to grow and change. So that's why I teach art immersion as a special practice and foundational tool of doing your work as a change maker. One of the techniques that I like to use and teach that I'll teach you today is scribble drawing. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about the importance of setting intention. So humans have been making art for centuries as a tool for self-expression. But in the 1940s, therapists began showing people how to use art, not just for self-expression or just to make a room more beautiful, but for personal growth and healing. And the way to do that is by setting an intention before you begin creating. So I invite you right now to pause the video, and I'd like for you to write down an intention. What is something that you, like a question that you have, or an area where you're needing support in your work as a change maker? So pause the video and write down an intention that you have, something that you're needing support with, a question maybe. Great. Now that you've got your intention written down, I'm going to guide you in creating a scribble drawing. It's a simple technique. You may have already tried this, but maybe you haven't done it after setting an intention. So just kind of forget about the intention that you created. All I want you to do is to grab a piece of paper and a pencil. And if you don't have that, I invite you to stop the video now and get a piece of paper and a pencil. Now that you have your paper and pencil, I invite you to take your drawing utensil, your pencil, pen, marker, whatever, and put it in your non-dominant hand. And I want you to put the tip or point of your pencil, marker, or pen on the paper and hold the drawing utensil in your non-dominant hand. And without looking at the paper, you can hold the paper with your dominant hand, but without looking at the paper, I invite you to either look away or close your eyes and begin to scribble, and I will tell you when to stop. So just begin scribbling. And stop. And now I invite you to pick up your paper and turn it in different directions until you find an image within your scribble. So, maybe it's an octopus, or one time somebody told me they saw a rooster in their image. So what you do once you've found the image is to bring that image out by making the lines darker. You can add new and more lines and ignore the ones that don't seem to make any sense with what you've found. So finding the image is setting the intention is the first step. Creating the scribble, finding the image is the second step. And now I invite you to think about, of all the things that you could have seen in that scribble, why did you see what you saw? What does it mean? The answer might be apparent to you immediately, or you might have to think about it for a while. One of the things that I do in my deep dive Changemakers Compass workshop is to teach people how to interpret images that they create through scribble drawings and other art processes that I share. So it's a great and powerful tool that change makers can use. It really helps you get in touch with the wisdom that's inside of you, and even with divine wisdom, I think. Now, I want to share with you the fourth tool that can really support you in your work as a change maker. Because when you're really serious about staying the course as a change maker, The fourth tool, which is called parts work or internal family systems, can really, really help you. A basic premise of parts work is that humans are, at our core, divine beings. We have this essence that can never be damaged. We are actually whole beings that can never be damaged, and we're complete, but it kind of gets covered up. We call that divine essence self, and there are some qualities that help you know when you're connected to self. You're connected to self when you're able to be compassionate and calm, and when you can have courage, and when you can be curious, and when you have great clarity, when you're caring, and when you're connected to people and things, and when you're creative. Those are the 8 hallmarks of self, and it's important to be able to have access to those in your work as a change maker. We also have, and this is another premise of parts work, we also have parts. So parts show up. So we're born as self. Parts show up when we encounter situations in life that feel too challenging or overwhelming or even traumatic. What happens when we experience that trauma or those challenging things is that a part of us can get wounded or afraid. And when that happens, another part of the system steps up and volunteers to protect or guard that part so that it won't have to experience that pain, and so that the entire internal system of parts won't get overwhelmed by the pain of that part. Now, we also have change maker parts. That's that part of you that notices those things that need to be changed. It's a part of me that when I was in that oppressive marriage that thought, this isn't right. He doesn't have the right to control what I do and define who I am when I'm just trying to have a voice in the world. And you have probably noticed that your change maker part gets active. It's like Spidey antenna, maybe Spider-Man antenna that get active. And they're like, and you're like, wait a minute, this just isn't right. This is not okay. So your change maker part gets active too. And it's important to be able to connect to that in a healthy way. I am going to share with you a practice that can help you learn how to connect with these different parts, because when you're doing your change maker work, it's important to be able to know when your protector part gets activated, because when your protector part is activated, that's when you're going to respond in a fighting way instead of a compassionate change maker way. So to do this exercise is experiential. Again, you don't need anything other than yourself. So I just invite you to, again, just get as comfortable as you can in your chair. And I invite you to take a few deep breaths. Your internal parts show up, a lot of times they'll show up as thoughts or images or body sensations or emotions. So it's important to learn how to pay attention to those and recognize which emotions and which thoughts are being generated by parts, or are they being generated by self? So we're going to practice connecting to self and to a change maker part and a protector part. So we'll start with that change maker part. So I just invite you to take a few deep breaths. Just think about a time when you felt called to create change in the world. You noticed something, it just didn't seem right. So think about that moment or that experience that didn't feel right. And think about how you felt just that call to change. And notice where you feel that call to change. Where do you feel it in or around your body? That's your change maker part. That's your connection. So anchor in that awareness of where you notice that change maker part. Where do you notice it in or around your body? Now let that connection fade. Take a few deep breaths, kind of go back to neutral. And now I invite you to think about a cause that you're passionate about, or something that's important to you, and you have run into some resistance to that change. Somebody had a different opinion than you. They're like, no, like with my ex, he was like, no, you need to stay at home. There's no need for you to be going into town, or you can't, like if I would have been doing like when I was teaching, and there was a part of me that was like, oh, you can't, you're not an art therapist. You can't be doing art therapy with these students. So think about what's the resistance to change. See if you can get a sense of, it might be a voice, it might be a body sensation, it might be emotion. Where do you feel it in or around your body? Now, anchor in that awareness of where it's located, because that is most likely a protector part of you. There's something that you have experienced earlier in life that gets up in, takes offense when somebody says, wait a minute, somebody has a view that's different than your own. That's your protector part. And it's going to get activated at times, at least, maybe not all the time, but there are going to be times when you're trying to create change when that protector part is going to get activated. So it's important to know what that feels like, what thoughts come up, what body sensations you get when that protector part gets activated. So anchor in that awareness and then let that awareness fade. And now I invite you to just kind of go back to neutral again. And now I want you to connect with self. That's self with a capital S. Remember, this is that aspect of you. It's not a part. It's who you are at your core, a spark of the divine. And you are connected to self when you have a sense of calmness and curiosity, when you can be compassionate and creative. So think about a time when you felt this way, when you had courage, you could stand up for what was important, and you were clear about the actions that you needed to take, when you felt connected, and when you felt a deep sense of caring. Those are aspects of self. It's that essence of you. So anchor in your awareness to self. And now gently bring your awareness back to the present moment. And we're going to spend a little bit of time now just reviewing what we've talked about so far. Now, the last tool that we talked about, this parts work or internal family systems, in my deep dive Changemaker workshop, I spent a lot of time helping people learn how to stay connected to self and learn how to recognize those parts that show up, because eventually the parts, your protector part won't be resisting. You can learn how to help it become a collaborator and just strengthen your ability to create change. So that one's really important. The other ones are important too, though, having spiritual connection, being connected through nature and immersed in nature, and being immersed in art. They're all important tools. Which one do you resonate with the most? Which one are you already good at and skilled at? And which one would you like to build your skills in? When you create change, it can really be challenging, because sometimes you can feel like you get stuck. When you get pulled off course far enough or often enough, you can lose your passion for change, and then you can feel stuck. And if you are feeling stuck, I invite you to reach out and get some support. How do you know if you might need support? Take a look at these list of behaviors and see, do you ever engage in any of these things, like people pleasing, perfectionism, overwork, or making decisions based out of fear? Or maybe you just neglect your self-care, or you put things off that you know you need to do. So if you are answering yes to any of these questions, I invite you to really seriously think about getting some support. I would love to have you join me for my Changemakers Compass Deep Dive workshop. We won't just be spending a few minutes on these 4 tools that I talked about. We'll be spending a whole hour on each of the 4 tools. And you won't just be sitting behind your computer while I'm talking to you. I'll be introducing activities. You'll be going off on your own to go out in nature or create some art. And you'll be connecting with your spirit, and we'll be practicing deeper techniques and practices for parts work and internal family systems. It's a powerful, powerful session. So I really invite you to think about signing up for that. If you don't feel called to attend the workshop, I invite you to book an empowered changemaker breakthrough call with me so that we can discuss how working together can support you in whatever way is needed for you. During the call, I'll help you remember what your big dream is and which parts might be blocking that. And I'll also help you create a plan to get all of your parts on the same page so that you can do your work as a changemaker more effectively and with more ease and joy so that you have more time left over to enjoy the rest of your life. So if you feel called to book a change with me or a change. If you feel called to book a call with me, you can click on the link that's in this slide right here. And if you feel called to sign up for the workshop, you can click this link right here. And you can also go to my website, which is thewilddivine.us, and you can find ways to get in touch with me there. So you may be wondering, well, I don't know, I'm still kind of wondering whether or not I should work with Tamara. But let me give you an example of what one of my former clients had to say. So this lady is a passionate educator. I don't know if you know any teachers, but their job is not easy. They have all this pressure on them. First of all, their class sizes are big usually, and then they have all this pressure to students need to learn, and if they don't learn, it's your fault. Well, the changemaker part of me doesn't like that, which is why I was so glad when Drea reached out to me for support, because she was doing the best that she could. She came and attended a retreat with me, and actually she made a scribble drawing like the one I had you make. And what she realized was that she needed more support. Her image helped her realize that that was something, if she could just get more support, that it would really help her in doing her work as an educator. So what she did was, when she realized that she needed more support, she thought about, well, what kind of support do I need? So she realized she was looking at her reading groups. She had 2 reading groups because traditionally that's the status quo. That's what most schools have, most classrooms have. And she thought, you know what? My students need more than 2 groups. They need 4 groups. So she found the courage. She got connected with self, and she found the courage to go and approach her administrator. And she said, you know what? I need 4 reading groups in my classroom. My students are struggling. And the administrator said, okay, well, let's see what we can do to make that happen. And they did. So now Drea has 4 reading groups in her 1st grade classroom, and she's so grateful because it's making her work as a change maker, a passionate educator, so much easier and more effective. And because she's not stressing about that, she's finding more joy in the rest of her life. So I just wanted to share that quote with you. And I'd like to end the class today with a quote from Deepak Chopra. He's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, and I love what he says. He says, it would be helpful if the universe would give us one big clue or a giant compass pointing to the direction we should be taking. In fact, the compass is there. To find it, you need only to look inside yourself to discover your soul's purest desire, its dream for your life. So yes, I believe he's saying, look into your heart, see what change your heart is calling you to try to create. And if you're needing support, you don't need to do it alone. Reach out for support. I would be honored to support you. And so I hope you'll reach out to me either to book an empowered changemaker call or to attend my workshop or to follow me on social media. I have a Facebook group called the Sacred Circle for Change is the name of the group. Reach out to me. Don't feel like you have to create change on your own, because you deserve support and you deserve to have the fuel you need and the tools you need to create change. So thank you for listening and watching.